At its height, the Roman Empire was one of the most extensive and complex civilization in Western society. By the year 285 CE, the empire had grown so large, in fact, that it could not be ruled by one central single government because of technology limitations at the time, obviously. So, the emperor of the time, who was famously bad for several terrible decisions he made, but this was the one good decision that he made, emperor at the time, Diocletian, decided to split the empire in half, into a western part remaining the Roman Empire and the eastern bit becoming the Byzantine Empire. And this was only because the empire was so big that they could not communicate across all of the territory that Rome had acquired. The Roman Empire began technically in the year 27 BC, whenever Gaius Octavian, who was Julius Caesar's nephew, came into power. And lasted until Flavius Augustus, who is considered the last Western Roman Empire, was killed by Germanic invaders in around 427 AD, because of the empire had been weakened so much that the Germanic invaders from across the Rhine had decided that now was the time to strike Rome. So Flavius Augustus was killed by the Germanic leader named Odoacer, and this marked the fall of the Roman Empire. However, the Byzantine Empire did continue to exist in the east until the year 1453, when Constantine XI was killed by the Ottoman Turks and Constantinople was sacked and destroyed, again in the year 1453. So, for the next 8 to 10 minutes, I will be discussing the Roman Empire, and due to time limitations, I will be speaking about the rise of the Roman Empire, the golden age of the Roman Empire, and what went on during that time, and then what led to the fall of the Roman Empire. So, diving into the rise of the Roman Empire, following the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Gaius Octavian, and later Romulus Augustus, who was the heir to the Roman throne and the nephew of Julius Caesar. He became the first emperor of Rome and actually took on the name Augustus Caesar because it was tradition in Roman society for you to take one of the names of the previous leaders. So, although Julius Caesar is often regarded as the true first emperor of Rome, this is not true because he was the dictator of Rome. He had this position because he was granted this power due to time of war, and once war was over, Julius Caesar refused to give up his power, so the Roman Senate gave him the nickname, or not the nickname, but the title of dictator, and we all know what happened after that. Brutus decided that he had had enough, and the rest is history. However, the Roman Senate was happy to give Gaius Octavian the title of emperor because when he came into power, he did a lot of good for Rome. He destroyed a lot of their enemies that they were facing at the time that was a constant thorn in their side. He secured the Roman borders. He made a uniform system, a uniform judiciary system for the Roman Empire, meaning that crime and punishment was fair and equal across the entire empire. He created public works jobs. He built aqueducts. He built public services such as public bathhouses, public outhouses, sewage systems, again, aqueducts, which was very important at the time for sustaining life outside of like the very centralized Roman city of Rome. And he actually created the Public Works Division, which was just a group of Romans who were just paid to go out and fix things that were wrong in the cities, such as their sewage and yada, yada, yada. Gaius Octavian is even quoted as saying, whenever right before he died, he said, "I found Rome a city of clay, and I left Rome a city of marble," talking about how he cemented Rome into what it's known as now. Gaius Octavian took the Roman Empire and like threw them forward in terms of progress, and the Roman Empire is known as what it is today because of the actions of Gaius Octavian. So, moving on to the Golden Age of the Roman Empire. The Golden Age of the Roman Empire also coincidentally began when Gaius Octavian came into power. Before this, they were a formidable force in Europe and in the Western world in general. However, they were not feared as they would become. But after Gaius Octavian destroyed several of his enemies, he created what was known as the Pax Romana, which translates from Latin to English into Roman peace, because at this time, the Romans were not at war with anybody because nobody wanted to go to war with Rome, because they knew that with Rome's military and like strategic advantage, you were basically guaranteed to lose to Rome, no matter who you were. Nobody wanted to mess with Rome. During the time of Pax Romana, economy, arts, architecture, and even commerce flourished. The empire grew in size, as I will show you right here. So this here is a bust of Gaius Octavian. That is his, I don't know what Julius Caesar would be to him right off the bat, but that is Julius Caesar right there, the ruler right before the Pax Romana, and that was Gaius Octavian. And here is a map of Rome during the Pax Romana, at the height of their power, the territory they controlled. As you can see, they controlled pretty much all of the Mediterranean. They controlled Egypt, they controlled northern Africa, and this would become the Byzantine Empire over here, the eastern part, and this would remain the Roman Empire when Diocletian split the empire in the year 285 AD. This was long after Gaius Octavian had lived and died. Basically, during the time of Pax Romana, the only way for your life to be bad in any way, shape, or form was for you to be a slave, basically. And the Romans at this time were not at war with any major tribes or clans or anything like that. However, they were still acquiring territory, and whenever they acquired your territory, if you were deemed fit enough, you were captured and sold into Roman slavery. And this is where the Romans really, again during the Pax Romana, they had an advanced enough society and people had enough, at this time, people had enough disposable income to where organized sports became a thing. The richest athlete in history was actually alive during the Pax Romana. His name escapes me right now, but historians estimate he was a chariot racer with a career spanning about 20 years, and historians estimate that his fortune amassed from organized sports, from chariot racing, and from gladiator events and such would be the equivalent of about around $10 billion today. So, I mean, you think that Michael Jordan did good with his career, he's dwarfed by Roman athletes. But that gives you an idea of how advanced their society was, because every other society didn't have time for organized sports. They didn't have time to sit down and watch a gladiator match because they were busy farming or they were busy dealing with the world around them. But Romans had life so good that they could take time out of their day to go and sit in an arena for a couple of hours and just watch somebody else fight tigers. And going back to the slavery, that is where that entertainment came from. Slaves had two choices. Either you did hard labor or you fought in the arena. You fought tigers, you fought other gladiators, and you could eventually earn your freedom through the arena. However, it was highly unlikely that you would survive long enough in the arena to see your freedom. And the movie, side note, the movie Gladiator is the emperor played by Joaquin Phoenix was a real emperor who was famously a terrible emperor by the name of Commodus because he was extremely self-centered. And he did what he did in the movie. He would injure his opponents and then fight them in the arena for the sake of glory to make himself look better. And in reality, he had an unfair advantage over people he fought. However, he did not fight Kurt Russell in the arena, and he did not lose to Kurt Russell in the arena. That's where the movie is a little bit unrealistic. But life was good for the average Roman during the Pax Romana. Generations lived and died during the Pax Romana, knowing nothing but stability and relative ease of life for the time, to put it simply. Now, moving into the fall of Rome, this is the interesting part right here. So, by the year 376, the empire was still doing good. However, 376 is when things started to take a little bit of a bad turn, I would say, because far in the east in Asia is when this is the time that the Mongols were just destroying everything, raping and pillaging. So many numbers of Asians and specifically Goths were being displaced by the Mongols and forced to move west. And where did they go? The Roman Empire. But when they got to the Roman Empire, there was a disagreement between native Roman people and the Goths, because the Goths had their way of living and the Romans had their way of living, and there was a humongous disagreement between this humongous population of Goths, almost the same size as the population of Rome itself, and then between the native people of Rome. Now, this disagreement between the two cultures, if you want to call them that, led to two civil wars happening in Rome. The emperor at the time name was Theodosius II, and he was actually killed during the second civil war. However, Rome did win both of these civil wars. They were significantly weakened by having to fight themselves. They had to use their own men to fight their own people, and anytime a civil war happens, it greatly diminishes the strength of your country. So, after Theodosius died, this greatly collapsed the Roman Empire, because then there became this power struggle over who would become the next empire, because Theodosius had died unexpectedly and had not named an heir. So there was fighting between several different members of his family, between his two incompetent sons, who we believe were products of inbreeding, his nephews, and a bunch of other people who all claimed that they had stakes to the throne. And this kind of disagreement will only weaken your empire even further when you can't elect a leader who will then go to work to fixing the country. So, while all of this was going on, the Germanic tribes across the Rhine River in modern-day France, Germany, those places, they had been beaten down by the Romans for hundreds of years at this point. The Romans were technologically, militarily, in every single way, more advanced than the barbarians. So the barbarians naturally did not like the Romans, because the Romans took much of their land, because they were unable to fight back. And so the Germanic tribes decided that it was time to cross the Rhine River and leave their mark on the Roman Empire. So by the year 476, the Roman Empire, the position of the Roman Empire wielded basically no power whatsoever. If you were the Roman Empire, you weren't really all that different from your average citizen, except for having the title. And the Germanic king Odoacer, previously mentioned, in 476 decided that it was time to make his move on the western part of the Roman Empire, because keep in mind the empire had been split into half at this point. Odoacer invaded Rome. He killed Flavius Augustus, and kind of almost as a screw you to the Roman Empire, Odoacer decided to take on the Roman tradition of taking on the name of the previous ruler, so he changed his name to Flavius Odoacer and named himself the King of Italy. It was no longer the Roman Empire, it was just now the Kingdom of Italy, and Flavius Odoacer became their new leader, and this marked the effective end of the Roman Empire in the West. The Byzantine Empire continued to exist for about another 1,000 years, although greatly weakened by the loss of the Roman Empire in the West, because they worked together. But yes, this was the fall. That was the fall of the Roman Empire, when Odoacer and the barbarian forces decided to cross the Rhine River and exterminate the remaining bit of the Roman hierarchy and Roman society. So, while its legitimacy lasted for centuries longer and its cultural influence is still felt today in the West, the Roman Western Empire never had the strength to rise again. Never again controlled any portion of Western Europe past the Alps or past France or Germany or the Rhine River. And again, the Byzantine Empire survived, though lessened in strength, remained for centuries as an effective power of the Mediterranean and the last remnant of the Roman Empire.